Russia is redeploying air defense systems to the temporarily occupied territory of Crimea, thereby weakening its air defense positions in other directions. This was stated by Colonel Dmytro Pletenchuk, spokesperson for the Ukrainian Naval Forces. Crimea holds both symbolic and logistical value for Russia. The density of air defense systems on the peninsula is higher than in many regions of the Russian Federation itself. Due to sanctions and a shortage of microelectronics, Russia has limited capacity to replenish its losses, Pletenchuk noted. He added that since the beginning of last year, Ukrainian Defense Forces have destroyed a significant portion of Russia's air defense assets, including the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet and other facilities. Sometimes it even looks a bit strange, for us, not for them, because the actual density of coverage in Crimea is higher than in many other areas, including within Russia itself, Pletenchuk emphasized. Pletenchuk noted that Ukrainian forces have been destroying and continue to destroy enemy air defense systems on the peninsula. Ukrainian soldiers had destroyed a significant number of Russian air defense systems, the Black Sea Fleet headquarters and other targets since the beginning of 2024. However, despite their losses, Russia continues to deploy drones from Crimea. These are mobile installations that can be moved around, though they mostly use already proven locations. We need to look at the final document. I am sure that it will have all the relevant protocols, boundaries, borders, means and goals, which is the most important part of it all, he said. Crimea has been bombarded with drones and missiles almost every day since 2022 and, in most cases, neither the Russian Ministry of Defense nor the Russian government confirm the strikes on military targets, even if the information can be verified. Rifat Chubarov, chairman of the Mejlis of the Crimean Tatar people, urged Crimean citizens to take care of their safety in light of increasing strikes carried out by the Ukrainian armed forces on Russian military targets on the peninsula, advising them to move away from the targets.
On the territory of the temporarily occupied Crimea, the Ukrainian Defense Forces regularly destroy Russian air defense systems, which is why the peninsula has turned into a kind of black hole for expensive air defense systems. This is stated in an article by a military political observer on Obozrevatel media outlet. In particular, the analyst noted that the Russian Black Sea Fleet and the Kerch Bridge are often mentioned in the context of military actions in Crimea. However, recently the temporarily occupied peninsula itself has become the main target for the Ukrainian armed forces, which has become the main site for the destruction of Russian air defense. According to him, this year it was in Crimea that the largest number of air defense systems were destroyed than in any other section of the front or on Russian territory. However, it is the temporarily occupied peninsula that has become the main platform for knocking out Russian air defense. Since the beginning of 2025, in no other area of military operations in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine or on the territory of Russia have so many air defense systems been destroyed as in Crimea, the expert emphasizes. In recent times, the primary unit of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine carried out verified strikes on the following targets: 1 Pantsir S-1 air defense missile and gun system, 2 S-300V air defense missile systems, 1 Tor M2 air defense missile system, 1 9S-15M Obzor 3 radar, 1 ST-68 radar, 1 9S-32 Imbir radar, 2 Castor 2E2 radars. According to him, this is only a part of the confirmed losses of the enemy. Earlier, dozens of air defense systems were destroyed, in particular the S-400 Triumph, PU-5P85SM201, KSHM, R-149, AKSH-1, Radar 96L6-1V, Radar 91N6E and the like. Kovalenko emphasized that the gradual knocking out of Russian air defense in Crimea, which began back in 2024 with the help of ATACMS missiles, has now turned into a more systematic and extremely effective hunt using attack drones. It turned out that Russian air defense systems in Crimea are in an extremely vulnerable position, and their restoration is a complex and lengthy process. The Russian occupiers found themselves in a trap. After all, as practice has shown, their air defense systems in Crimea are in an extremely vulnerable position, and when one of them is destroyed, it is impossible to quickly compensate for it by pulling a new one out of a cylinder like a magician pulling a rabbit, the observer emphasized. The expert drew attention to the fact that the air defense system is one of the most energy-intensive categories of military equipment to produce. For example, India's order from the Russian Federation in 2018 for 11 S-400 divisions, 5 regimental sets, should be fully completed only by 2026. Despite significant losses, the Russians cannot completely withdraw their air defense systems from Crimea, as this would leave the peninsula vulnerable to Ukrainian missiles and drones. Instead, they are forced to transfer air defenses from other regions, including Russia, weakening their own defenses in these areas. According to Kovalenko, the invaders have found themselves in a stalemate on the peninsula. In particular, the enemy cannot leave occupied Crimea without echeloned cover, while at the same time they regularly take out systems that are becoming endangered. The observer compared the situation in Crimea to a black hole that is absorbing Russian air defense, a sort of endless disposal of air defense systems in Crimea, or, for greater aesthetics, the Crimean Ouroboros. At the beginning of 2022, we talked a lot about Chernobevka. What a black hole, what a hell it turned into for the ROV in 2025. We can already say that Crimea has turned into an inevitable and fatal black hole for the Russian air defense. The analyst adds.